Hi everybody, welcome to my third video in my CBD oil series. Today I'm going to talk about why CBD oil isn't a latest health fad and why there are some legit accepted medical indications and inquiries. Now, before I get started, in case you missed part one where I went over why this herbal darling is so popular and some specific precautions and caveats to consider before taking it, I will be posting that link as well as the video and the link to part two where I went over and reviewed the history and regulation of the cannabis plant and why it's important to know, especially because of its variation in different states, so you know if you're actually using it legally. Kind of important to prevent your imprisonment. I'm looking out for you. Okay, let's get started with first kind of defining what CBD is, because many people hear these terms, CBD, marijuana, THC, cannabinoids, hemp, CBD. What's the difference? So I found a really easy to understand excerpt from an article that explained what the difference is between CBD, marijuana, and hemp. And CBD stands for cannabidiol or cannabidiol. It's found in cannabis plants, and both hemp and marijuana are species of cannabis found in the Cannabis sativa family. But hemp and marijuana differ in that they have different levels of chemical compounds. Think of different species of different essential oils, right? They have different levels of constituents in them, and they have different chemotypes, similar for the cannabis plant. And the cannabis plant has about 100 known cannabinoids, and two of the most commonly known ones are the THC, which is what most people think of when they think of marijuana, which kind of gets somebody high, and it's the psychoactive component, and then the CBD, which is the component that's latest been explored. And hemp contains a low level of THC. In order for it to be marketed legally, it has to contain less than 0.3% THC, and federal and state law set that level. And it has a higher level of CBD or cannabidiol, so you can get CBD from hemp as well, and it's got a higher level. So that's kind of the difference in why there's hemp oil and CBD oil. CBD oil that's not extracted from hemp, right, would be the isolate of CBD, just like you isolate a compound from an essential oil, right? You might take the linalool out of, which is the relaxing component of lavender. But linalool does not lavender's effect make, right? And we're gonna, as we explore a little bit, we'll learn the difference between kind of this entourage effect with the whole plant versus kind of the isolates, right, of studying just the THC or the CBD. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So that's just a little sneak preview for those who are watching the video. So how did CBD become so popular? Well, before I get into the fact that it's been kind of being studied in medicine for a while now, maybe more recently, but dating back, you know, into 2000, 2010, recently, and there was a documentary in about, I think it was 2013, called Weed. And in that documentary, it portrayed the story of a little girl, Charlotte, who was struggling with epilepsy. She had a rare form of a seizure disorder where she would struggle with 300 seizures a day. And when she was able to try CBD oil, the only thing that ever worked for her, she had relief. And this was documented, and the results were so astounding and people were so touched by it. There was a movement by 7 brothers who sold a low THC hemp to get the CBD available to more people. Specifically, they were aiming with stories of children with epilepsy, and this kind of grew into this nationwide surge of CBD oil and its effect, and people making case stories and stating evidence of how helpful it was for them. And so people have been very quick to use CBD oil because of these claims and because of the results from these documentary, and because it's being marketed so well, and because it is a compound that will have an effect in the body. And as I mentioned in part one, remember there's caveats, because when something does work, it also means it has an effect, but also has side effects. So we're going to go into that a little more next time. But actually, the clinical side of CBD was sprouting earlier, before the documentary of weed, where they were studying cannabis and CBD for epilepsy and for psychoactive disorders. Specifically, it was known that the THC was the psychoactive component, and several studies had shown that when it was combined with CBD, that there was actually less of a psychoactive effect, and it was able to balance out memory recall, which I'll get to in another post. You guys are getting a sneak preview. And also, it's been licensed, CBD, THC in cannabidiol was licensed in some medicines in phase 3 clinical trials in the United States, with a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to cannabidiol for the treatment of pain and spasticity associated with multiple sclerosis. And so, according to the FDA, they recently did approve CBD for epilepsy. I'm sure partly because of some of the wave from its popularity, but they've also, stated that they was studied in 3 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trials involving 516 patients with this rare form of seizure disorder, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, and Derivat syndrome. Now, my pronunciation is horrible, so forgive me. But taken with other medications, that's what it says on their website, it was shown to be more effective in reducing the frequencies of seizures compared to placebo. Now, the most common side effects that they reported were sleepiness, sedation, lethargy, elevated liver enzymes, decreased appetite, diarrhea, rash, fatigue, malaise and weakness, insomnia, sleep disorder, and infections. So this isolated form of CBD has an effect, and it also has side effects to look out for. I don't want to rain on the CBD parade, because I have had clients proclaim that it's been helpful, but I've also had clients proclaim that it has not, and it's caused some adverse effects. And they've done this without, before they saw me, they were reporting things that they've tried. So just an FYI and a heads up. Now, an update on the classification of Epidiolex, because initially it was that Schedule 1, which is the most abuse potential with no medical use. That's what cannabis was scheduled. It was recently moved to a Schedule 5 just for this Epidiolex, and that is the least restrictive schedule of abuse potential from the CSA. Now, back in, there was a 2012 trial that reported that CBD had the antipsychotic effects that I was talking about, and these authors were exploring the mechanisms. And then later, the effects of several of its constituents were explored to determine their actions, and they thought that anandamide signaling in the central nervous system was partially important for helping CBD have therapeutic potential for the treatment of psychosis. So that's kind of just a brief review of some of the current state of the research in medicine where CBD is today. Now the research is actually more far-reaching as hemp just got legalized in the Farm Bill. So CBD oil may be more readily available. Like I said last time, CBD oil per se is not legal because it's scheduled as a drug, but hemp oil is. And hemp oil can contain CBD oil, so it's kind of confusing, the legalities of it. But it's accelerating. It's estimated to grow by 700%, the market shares in 2020. Some sources claim it's going to be a $22 billion industry. So everybody and their brother is paying attention and it's getting marketed like crazy. So I think it's important that we really know what it does and how it will affect us and what the science says and kind of what our case reports, which are important too. Case reports are important, clinical studies are important, but also those clinical studies are important because we want to know what can be potential negative effects and also mechanisms of actions so that, can create safer therapeutic compounds and standardizations. So we've reviewed its role for epilepsies, its potential use for psychiatric disorders, some of the case reports, and the difference between CBD, hemp, marijuana, and a lot this video. So I hope that you stuck with me and were able to follow me. And then coming up in the next articles, I'm going to review in more detail some of the adverse and potential side effects of CBD, because if we're going to take something, we want to know the good things that can occur and also what to look out for if our body isn't responding as we'd like it to. And then I'm going to actually go through some of the clinical studies and trials with CBD. And I'll just give you another heads up for watching this video. There's a lot of mouse trials and mechanistic studies, and there's also some clinical trials that I found, and hopefully I'll find some more as I keep writing this up and digging into the research for all of you. So thank you for joining me. If you are in Northeast like me, I hope that you were able to shovel yourself out from the storm this weekend. And if you're watching this at another time, then I hope that you're all well and cozy too. So I will catch you on the next video. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining me.